All right, welcome back to another episode here, Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool.
Sean. We're on episode 32. It's crazy. I think we started this show back in late October.
Yeah.
So we've cranked out quite a bit of content just
With
over
holidays,
the last.
and that's pretty good.
Yeah, it is. It really is. So we had a guest on our last show. Probably that was our first time having a guest, and we struggled painfully through
some tech issues. It was nice though. He gave us a compliment at the end. He said, "You can tell a lot about somebody how they handle tech issues."
Right.
So
yes.
I think that was a compliment.
I think it was. It was. I don't think it was a slap. I think I'm going to take it as a compliment.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it's a great episode. I can't wait to get that one out. But on this episode, we're back to our discussion of breakthrough advertising. We're moving ahead into 11 with mechanization.
Mechanization. We're going to talk about tanks, armored vehicles,
armored infantry, all that cool stuff that we learned. Yeah.
And when we run out of stuff of that to talk about, then we'll talk about how to verbally prove that your product does what you claim it can. So that'll be fun. But first,
we have another beer. This is actually it's a dark beer, and if you just looked at it, you would think porter stout, but it's actually just a dark ale.
Really?
Yeah. So
even the bottle doesn't look like it doesn't match the beer color.
No, it looks like something out of kind of their whole Middle Ages type, maybe early Renaissance / Dark Ages. I don't know what they're trying to portray here.
So what is the? Let me see.
It is 15. I'm pulling it up here.
New Belgium.
1554. 1554. New Belgium.
Okay, with a picture of a bicycle on the neck of the label.
Yes.
I'm not sure what that's about.
And so they say this is a dry beer. It's not a porter, not a stout, but it is a dark, dry, yet dry ale.
Okay.
Pitch black, malty sweet, and refreshingly dry beer. Now, refreshingly dry beer seems like almost like an oxymoron, but maybe not.
I think of dry beer. I think of like Asahi or a Japanese beer, sake, something like that. So, all right, now I'm curious.
It says not porter, not stout. It's 1554.
Oh, yeah. It's its own thing. Yeah. It kind of fits in with our chapter today, actually.
Yeah, it sure does. So 6% ABV. So, yeah.
All right. Well,
let us partake.
Oh. So what does it mean dry? What does that mean?
Well,
just know dry is, I'm not a wine guy or anything like that. So, but when I think of dry, it's like there's like no finish.
Yeah, I thought of dry just when I took that taste. I mean, on the back end.
Like there's nothing? There's something
flat.
there,
I thought maybe not dry. I thought flat.
Yeah.
I was probably, there was a little persuasion going on there because when I poured it, there was absolutely almost no head whatsoever in it. So I was probably a little primed to think it's going to be a little flat, but
probably went in the wrong order for this too. We had the chocolate stout on the last episode, which I thought was really good. Mm-hmm. One of my favorites. But yeah, this is a little dry, so we'll see.
And that chocolate stout was it actually, as you mentioned previously, it actually got better. To me, it wasn't great when I first had that initial sip. But as I started drinking, that chocolatey, had kind of a chocolatey, smooth flavor.
Yeah.
It was good.
I like
it had a great aftertaste. I don't know about this. It's dry initially, but maybe it'll get better. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
It's probably not something I would buy again. There's something I can't figure out. There's a taste there that I can't figure out. I don't know if it's the 15 or the 54 I'm tasting. I'm not sure which. Is that a 15th century taste or just a mid-century taste?
I'm not sure. They were probably happy with this back then.
Oh, I'm sure this was top flight back then for sure,
As opposed to drinking the water.
Yeah. Although it might be mistaken at the time without water filters and everything else. So, all right. Well,
we'll give you our final conclusion.
Hey, do we want to talk about our fan mail?
Make ourselves feel good? Yeah, let's mention that.
Yeah. So
we got a card, and Sean's got it in his hands. Heavy stock. If you drop that on your foot, Sean, you would feel some...
I might lose a foot. This is like literally, if you hold it, you can see I think they glued 2 pieces of cardstock together, like to make this one. Like Rush Limbaugh would be like really thin, like. But this is
in your This is thick. It's thick.
I'm gonna hold it up to the camera.
Yeah, I mean you can't bend that. So give us a quick synopsis. We got our first bit of fan mail, and it's all what I was impressed about this is that anybody can send you an email. In this day and age, you see nothing but emails back and forth.
Yeah,
people tend to overlook those, but rarely do you get a piece of handwritten mail anymore. It's rare for anybody.
Yeah, I mean your mom has beautiful handwriting.
Yeah,
she really does.
Yeah. Thanks, Mom. Appreciate it.
Oops, wasn't supposed to leave that part out. Now, this came from Crystal in an envelope, so it's a postcard in an envelope.
Yep.
Really fancy round stamp, too. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, Persuasion Labs.
Yeah. So,
first of all, they just got their name read.
That's right. That's right.
Probably the one of the most famous podcasts on persuasion in the world.
With no financial incentive whatsoever, and we just did that. So
yeah, so they got that right. But yeah, nice, and it's a well thought out. Like she mentioned an episode,
right?
This wasn't just like a generic Barnum statement type. Oh, your podcast is really good. Yeah, it was
love it. You guys are great. What do you do again?
Like those WordPress comments I get.
Oh, yeah. The comments are outstanding. Like some of them I can't.
Great post. Thumbs up. No, it's very specific. She liked how we integrate. I thought that said interrogate new beers, but that might be true for this one.
We will probably interrogate this one.
So we integrate the beer. She liked that. So yeah, it was, but they're in the behavioral sciences field. So
nice.
We've got some highbrow people.
That's right.
To Persuasion by the Pint.
Absolutely. And I think we would. It would be great to have someone from their company perhaps join us as a guest in the near future. Yes. So we will be reaching back out to you. Thank you, Crystal, for the kind comments.
So, Crystal, if you're watching, listening,
thank you.
Go to persuasionbythepint.com, contact field, and let us know how we can get you or someone from your office. Let's see, my team and I would be privileged to help. So someone from your team or yourself to talk about persuasion on Persuasion by the Pint. No, very classy move, though.
It is. And I'm always impressed. And I mean, anything like that deserves a shout out.
Absolutely.
Somebody that takes the time to do that.
You found a very interesting article about handwritten notes.
I did. So this is really cool. It's funny how we can tie these two together because I just came across this article this past week, and I'd gotten Crystal's card a few days before that. But this is an article, and we'll probably throw it in the show page this week, but it was an article on the BBC, how sending handwritten letters created a $1 billion firm. So it goes on to talk about a tech company that used something as antiquated as writing handwritten letters and sending them out to top executives at companies that they wanted to do business with.
That's so disruptive.
Yes. But that was their whole strategy. That was their primary marketing strategy, for getting business. They didn't use emails because emails, so often everybody gets an email. Hey, let me tell you about what we do, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And delete. And then again, they didn't send a typed letter or any other type of sales materials that, straight to them. You knew exactly, but it was using something as personal as a handwritten letter. It's just completely written out. And, in their situation, I could see how this works because they're not targeting, I mean, they're not out to the consumers. They're targeting specific companies that they want to do business with.
Right.
So
kind of the old Chet Holmes approach with probably the top, 100 or top whatever, companies, dream clients that you'd want to go after.
Yep.
Definitely a lost. We should probably look at that book sometime, The Sales Machine with
Yeah.
Chet Holmes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's
old school, but it's still highly relevant.
Yeah, you could pretty much everything in that book you could still do.
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
probably better now than when it was written.
So 8 years, this is what they did. This was back in 2012 when they launched. So today, the company is Salinas, and they some of their customers include BMW, ExxonMobil, General Motors, Siemens, Uber, and Vodafone.
Pretty good clientele for a startup.
Yeah, not bad.
Not bad.
But they went to the top using a very personalized approach. So kudos. That's I'll always love listening to stories like that. That's really cool.
So for, how many times have you and I been consulting with somebody and they're like, oh, that won't work for our business because our clients are like too smart for that, or they don't say that, but that's what they're implying. Exactly. Our clients are too intelligent for that. They're too smart. They won't fall for that. But everybody falls for a handwritten note because it's different, and you don't know until you start reading it. And I think human nature overall is decent, and you're going to give somebody that takes the time to write a handwritten note, especially these days, you're going to give them a little bit more of your attention. You're going to be impressed by their taking the time instead of just firing off an email.
I'm going to tell you a quick story. One time on a client I won, this was years back, but it was a manufacturing client. But so I did a little research before. I went in for a meeting and found out this was a boat manufacturer. They made some of these high to mid level pontoon boats. Some of them were nice, some were like 2-story type pontoon deals. I mean, and so I was trying to get their business. This was years back when I was first getting into sales. And I did a little research, found out they had won some awards in Pontoon Boating Magazine, that industry trade magazine. So I knew that was a big deal for them. Yeah. So I basically got a photo of the magazine, put it on a card, and this was not actually a handwritten. This was like a digital, using like the old send out cards.
Right.
Put it screenshot, inserted that in the card with a personal note, because you could use your handwriting font in there. Send it to them. Sent it to him. Didn't hear anything from him. It's like, okay, whatever. I sent it out. So I finally got my meeting. It was probably 3 weeks later. I go in to meet with the CEO of the company, and I walk in, and he's got this huge office, and I go in to sit with him. First time I met with him, he shakes my hand, sits down, and on his desk sitting was that card that I sent him.
Wow.
Still sitting right there on his desk. And he knew about it. He just didn't say anything, but didn't say anything to me about that card the whole meeting, like thank you or anything like that. But I got the business. So
wow.
And it was sitting on his card. It wasn't sitting under a stack of whatever, or in a,
like it was displayed like a
it was
birthday
displayed
card
on
or
his
anything
desk.
else.
Right. Because I put that screenshot of the magazine, that photo in the magazine, I put it on the very front cover of the card.
Ah, smart.
And so he was obviously, that made an impression. So
you are so persuasive and influential. You should have a podcast.
We should, yeah. Maybe one day. I don't know. We'll drink a beer and talk about it.
Talk about it and see what happens.
All right. So let's jump right into mechanizing our way through this. So this is interesting because, we were talking with Chris on our previous podcast, and he actually said, you asked him the question, like, what is your favorite, what is your favorite principle from all of breakthrough advertising. He said, actually, what you guys are about to get into here.
Yeah.
So this is a good timing.
Yeah. Didn't even pay him for that or anything.
Yeah,
that's pretty amazing. By the way, if you like what we've been covering in breakthrough advertising, you can go to Chris did us a huge favor. He takes this and he applies it to Facebook ads.
Yeah.
And if you go to his website, codetoconversions.com,
Right.
2 is the number 2,
Right.
number 2, conversions.com, /persuasion, he put a special deal together for our listeners that'll help you apply these principles to Facebook advertising specifically.
Yeah.
So
That's fantastic.
our plug
Yeah.
for the day. So, so if you skip too far ahead, trying to skip the commercial, you might want to skip back. So, all right. So yeah, this is really cool because I love what he says in the beginning, just as a reminder in this chapter, is it copy, your sales presentation, your Facebook ad, whatever it is, shows up in 2 places. One, it shows up in the medium itself.
Yep.
You know, whether that's a newspaper, TV, airwaves, Facebook ad, whatever. And then it also shows up in your prospect's brain, in their mind.
Yep.
Because as they're reading, as they're listening, as they're looking, watching, you know, they're having images go through their head.
Sure.
And our job as persuaders and influencers is to control that so that their desire becomes, you know, our product fulfills the desire that they're after.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about what's in the medium, whether it's print or audio. It is about what's going on in their mind at the same time.
Yeah, it says, I underlined this section of at the very beginning, for your prospect. You're feeding him ideas, images, and emotions in a planned pattern. And he is feeding back to you the reactions to these ideas, images, and emotions.
Yeah, so, depending on the medium, if you're face-to-face in a sales conversation, you can kind of read that, you can kind of get a feel for it.
Yep.
But when it's not, when it's a one-way type medium, whether it's social media, anything online, anything in print, radio waves, any of that stuff, like you've got to anticipate all that stuff. And you have to know where you are in the conversation and control it. Yeah. So you kind of have to play both sides, which is one of the things he talks about in here is playing both sides. You've got to be both, prospect, and you've got to be the guy selling to the prospect at the same time. Yeah. So he talks in here about, we've talked about how people are they have demands for more information. That's when they say, tell me more. So that's right at the beginning. We either get their attention or we don't. And if we get their attention, they say, well, tell me more. Or, Chris was talking about how they get attention and how we could, what do you call it? Ancient aliens.
Ancient aliens. Yeah. Very interesting.
Cool. So if you want to know more about that, then.
Is that the guy with the really crazy hair that you see on all these Facebook memes? I think he's on some alien show, but I don't know.
Huh. Don't know that one. So demands for more information is the first thing that we've covered throughout the book. And then demands for proof. Oh yeah, who says so? Is the question that's going on in the prospect's mind.
Okay.
And then if you can keep them that far with the techniques we've talked about so far, then the next question they're going to ask is, how does that work? Right? So they're open enough now and they're like, how does that work? And that's really what mechanization is all about, is how does that work? Like, tell me more about how your product works, right? So you've got their attention. You don't want to lose it by just kind of glossing over how it works. So that's what mechanization is all about.
People have inquisitive minds. They want to know, okay, all right, how's this gonna work? We actually mentioned a little bit, when we had Chris on, we were talking about some of how that's applied in Facebook ads. And, how they're using that. And also I found it very interesting how a lot of what used to be on how-to information or, lead reports or things like that, PDF reports or white papers like that are now being integrated into the ad itself to show people how, that old axiom. What was the old copywriter that used to integrate a lot of the how-to into some of
Ogilvy?
Yeah, Ogilvy. Yeah, that's it.
A lot of his house ads were he would just lay out, you know, a big portion of how they do what they do.
Yeah.
You know, both his house ads and for a lot of his financial clients and things like that. So yeah, and Ogilvy on advertising, which I believe is in our resource section. For books.
Definitely.
So yeah, so how does it work? Like that's what people want to know. If you get them to say, "Tell me more," if you can get past the "oh yeah, who says so," you know, if you can get past their doubting the promise or that kind of thing, then they're going to open up and they're going to say, "How does it work?" You know, that doesn't necessarily mean you're off the hook. You've still got to sell from that point forward. And that's a big point that he makes in this chapter. You have to continue to sell. You can't just rattle off, you know, what makes your product work. So, so he says in here, when you sit down to write a piece of copy, it's not should I use it or should I build mechanism into this copy, but how much? Like how much should I use? So you're always going to use it if you're doing your job correctly when you're creating anything that, or even an argument, you know, if you're trying to make a point, anytime you're trying to persuade or influence, you're going to have some form of mechanization. It doesn't have to be a physical product.
Yeah.
That when I first read this the very first time, I was like, to me, it was almost like an engineering thing. And that's not what he's talking about here. He's talking more about how it works in that person's life. Could be a service.
Sure. This could apply to services easily.
Yeah. So that's an important distinction to understand, that it could definitely be services. So there's basically three ways that he talks about, or three stages that, you know, you might use, depending on how much competition there is, you know, in the marketplace for the type of product or service that you have. And number one is just flat out just naming, the mechanism. So he gives an example in here of a camera ad where you just kind of rattle off the features of the things that a camera can do. You know, he has in here electronic light setter, a push button Zomar lens, and magazine load. I don't know what any of those things are, but if you're a camera person back in the 50s,
absolutely,
you would know what that is. You know, for us in today's world, the iPhone might have, you know, front-facing camera, rear-facing camera, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. So
certain level of stability, image stability or whatever. And, you know,
right.
Some of us are familiar with some of those terms, but, you know,
low light,
low light
camera, those kind of things. Those would be just kind of, you're just describing what they do.
Yeah.
Now the problem is when everybody has those same features, when iPhone or Galaxy or, you know, whoever, they all have the same features, you know, what makes yours better?
Right.
And that's where you get into kind of the next phase.
Describing the mechanism.
Yeah. And there's two reasons you'd want to do that. One, because the prospect doesn't understand the mechanism. Or, like we just said, because everybody else has the same mechanism.
Yeah.
And
how does yours stand out?
And the same price and all that.
Right.
Which is where, honestly, in today's marketplace, I don't care what market you're in, that's probably where you are.
Yeah.
You're probably competing with at least a couple competitors that have basically the same features at basically the same price, unless you're going for the elite crowd. And even then, you know, Mercedes and BMW and Lexus, I mean, they all, even though they're the higher brands. So unless you go up to Maybach or something like that, you know.
Yeah. And some of the mechanism doesn't always have to be like how your product works. It could be how your product is formulated to stand out from the rest.
Right.
So we've talked about in the past, you know, how these I don't know if it's Anheuser-Busch, but they talk about their process, you know, making their beer completely different, because they use this, you know, certain filtering process, and, you know, they get from the clear waters of Lake whatever. And but, you know,
they don't use corn syrup.
Yeah, we do know that. But no, I was just, this reminds me, because I was talking with in my industry this past week, a manufacturer, a carbon fiber manufacturer that makes, it's a company out in Colorado, and they make mountain bikes. So the trend is, obviously, people are going lighter, lighter weight. So you're seeing more and more bikes. Companies are using carbon fiber to create like really lightweight bikes, but are still durable. And a lot of them, unfortunately, because of the cost of carbon fiber in the process, the frames are made over in China. Well, this particular company has figured out, and it was interesting because I was thinking about when I read through this, they were describing their process without, it's kind of a proprietary, but they would give me kind of a summary of what their process is for making that carbon fiber frame and how they were able to make it cost effective by using this process in their system in-house and able to do it here in the States and charge, about $300 less than a lot of their competition. So, wow. And still make a very good profit. So it was pretty cool. But them describing the process is part of their marketing to say, we're not going to tell you everything, but we're going to tell you how we're able to distinguish ourselves from the competition while you're getting a better bike. So
that's cool. I know one of the things when I do write copy for people is, especially in the B2B world or the product world, there's a lot of times really good stuff hidden in the processes that companies have, even service.
Yeah.
I mean, even service-based companies, they overlook it because it's just part of their standard operating procedure. Right. But those things are what sets them out. Even if the end product is similar, the process, like you just said, can make enough difference to justify doing business with that person. Maybe it's the experience that you get as a customer. Yeah. Maybe it's the end product. Even if the one from the carbon fiber from China. And here we're the same. There's some people who would just want to buy U.S.
Right,
made in the USA.
Yep.
But it sounds like they've got even more of an advantage. So, yeah. It's really and it is. So he gives. This is it's almost funny reading this ad. That's the example in here about the detergent, but it's a good example because we can look at this in hindsight and see how it's evolved.
Yep.
So he's talking about whiter wash with no hard work. That's the big promise. And then the mechanism is, this is so funny. Like, I'm almost embarrassed to say this. And to think that this actually worked as an ad campaign is just, it's
well,
great.
I mean, we're talking like the 60s or the
50s,
60s.
Yeah. So, so the mechanism in this soap ad, laundry detergent, wait for it, suds. Suds. Like, that's it. Suds.
Suds.
Because this has suds.
Right.
I don't know what the other detergent had before that.
Yeah, I thought every soap in existence had suds, but apparently I was wrong. At one time,
not. Apparently it's just like cloudy water, not actual suds.
Well, I know soap at one time was like lard. Or a lot of lard was used as a soap, and so I don't know.
So the suds pull the dirt away or wash. Yeah. What's it say?
Yeah.
Rinse a mild granulated soap that gives rich, lasting suds even in the hardest water. Just soak the clothes in the creamy Rinso suds, and the dirt and stains float off. They just
so simple. Off. They just disappear. Magic.
They just ride the little soap.
Those
buzzers.
magic.
And now
those little magic soap suds.
It's kind of like the scrubbing bubbles. That's kind of what they're saying, right? You spray on the tub.
Yeah, I remember those, man.
Yeah, they're still around.
From a kid.
Every once in a while, you'll see that commercial air, but this just the bubbles do all the work.
Yeah,
it's just the suds. It's kind of like beer. It's just the suds.
Yeah.
So anyway, but now, if you look at it now, because that's advanced, right? So everybody's detergent has suds.
Yeah. Like suds. Yeah,
right? On. So now it's got to be much more, you've got to either...
Yeah, we could use a few more suds in this in that beer, I tell you.
Not your favorite. But you can't... So what he talks about is when you go through the ad, though, you have to give the copy some life.
Yeah.
So like the phrasing they used back then, a mild granulated soap that gives rich, lasting suds even in the hardest water. Just soak the clothes in the creamy Rinso suds, and the dirt and stains float off. Rinse and the wash is spotless. Like there's words in there that are very vivid words that create word pictures in your mind. And I think this is where so much people's persuasion and influence, even in conversation, is lacking and just falls flat because they're not using exciting words, words that tantalize the brain cells, so to speak.
Well, float, I mean,
tickle the brain cells.
Tickle the, I
like that better. Tickle the brain cells.
The another hilarious, it's and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but floats fat right out of your body. I mean, come on, anybody that were to listen to that today, no, that's not how it works. But at the time, thinking, oh, okay, it floats it right out. So, and I'm thinking, okay, how does that what? How does that work?
Yeah, and some of the claims aren't that much different if you look at some of the the current claims,
right?
Some of the new pharmaceuticals that are coming out targeting weight loss, and I mean you've mentioned this before, the whole like cool sculpting and things like that. I mean it's kind of what they're saying. They're just saying it with newer technology,
right?
But now it's a laser or a cold wave or whatever that thing is. Like that's the mechanism
breaking up those fat cells. Yeah, exactly.
So that they then just float out of the
float
body.
out. Bingo.
Wash
They've
out.
just found a way
all the way back around. They finally invented the technology.
That's right.
To catch up with the ad. I know. So he talks about like in the second stage, calling describe the mechanism. One thing you can do is invent a miracle ingredient, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it, OxyClean, just the name itself, they gave it a name that sounded like a miracle ingredient. And even in there, I think they talk about, the oxidating power,
right?
That, you mix it with water and it kind of, there's this oxidating power that happens and nobody questions really what that is.
Right.
It's just bubbles. It's suds.
Yeah.
Basically.
Just fancy word for suds.
Suds. But it's funny because I did this with a B2B client who sold polishing pads, and they had there's certain chemicals and there's diamonds and there's several things that go into making a good polishing pad for like polishing concrete floors or granite countertops. There's basically three things that go into that. There's the diamonds that are in the pad. There's super small diamonds because diamonds are hard and they can break down rock and concrete.
Sure.
And then there's the resin that kind of holds it together. And then there's the pad, whatever the pad itself is made up of. So there's basically three parts. So we are rolling out a higher, better line of polishing pads for this company, and we were looking for something to set it apart because that is a commoditized industry for the most part. So we were thinking about the old gasoline ads, like there's gasoline with Techron, right? Or there's Shell has their 7 ingredients, or Exxon, or I don't remember who's who.
Yeah, I think it's
Shell. I know has their own ingredient, their V Power,
Chevron or Exxon.
And I think Exxon has their Techron.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but hey, it sounds important because it's got its own name, right?
Yep.
So we came up with trifectamate technology, and it's these three, and we kept it proprietary. Because then you don't actually have to describe it.
It's a good point. Now we can't tell you what's in it.
It's proprietary. So, but it at least makes it sound thought out. And the fact is, it is. I mean, they took a certain resin and a certain type of diamond, and there's a certain process for selecting the diamonds, and there's a heat process for putting all that stuff together and making the pad. So there is a process, and we just gave it a name to make the pad stand out and us be able to bump it up one notch as far as quality and everything else. So we just called it trifectamate technology, because it was the mating of three different processes. So, but then stage 3. So stage 1, just to kind of go back, is just basically name the mechanism. Stage 2 is to give a little description to it, kind of give some copy around it about how it does what it does. And then number 3 is to feature the mechanism, where you really get into like the whole.
When the market's really much more sophisticated, and
and you really start to sell the mechanism itself. And you talk about there's a new way to get what you've been wanting. So this could be service, this could be or product. I mean, it could be either one, right? So it's just a new way to get what you've been wanting. Because remember, it's not about the product, actually. It's about fulfilling the desire that already exists in the prospect. So really, it's just a new way to get what they've wanted but have not been able to find in the past.
For example, shrink hemorrhoids without surgery.
There you go. I was right on the tip of my tongue.
That was like you were about to say that.
About to say that. So yeah, I mean, and that's simple. That could be a cream. That could be could be a lot of different things. So it doesn't have to be some groundbreaking necessarily new technology, but you have to describe it and you have to feature it differently than what you maybe did in the past. Run your car without spark plugs. That we've touched on that ad in the past. And,
sure.
And I don't know if you had a chance to go through that ad, but we're going to go through it, I think, in the next chapters when we go through it. And there's so many cool things. I'm excited about that next episode that we'll do. That I want to jump forward because he talks a little bit about when you're wanting to let somebody know that they're getting a bargain. Maybe you've got a sale going on or you got something like that. But before we even get to that, he says, a perfectly marvelous product that just couldn't be sold. Every copywriter has had at one time or another a perfectly marvelous product that just couldn't be sold because people wouldn't believe that it could do what he knew it could do. I could tell you when I was in the financial newsletter business and I was writing that stuff, one of the hardest things to sell was a financial newsletter around value stocks.
Right.
Because it was just too boring for people. They wanted the stock that was going to go up 10x or the new discovery, the new oil discovery, the new tech stock, the new biotech, but just an old dividend paying or value stock.
The kind of stock that Warren Buffett likes, basically.
I mean, who wants that? I mean, it was amazing how hard that was to sell.
Yeah.
Because people couldn't wrap their head around that could actually build wealth and make them money.
Right.
And part of it is they wanted they were trying to make up for lost time because they had not invested.
They need a quick out.
So they were trying to make up for lost time, and value stocks won't do that, although they probably would even if you got late. So that's that. But they did give an example of a price cut. So a price cut can be a type of mechanization for your product, to make it stand out from some other things. And when you do that, he talks about how price cuts must be justified. You can't just throw out a price cut just because it's a holiday or just because it's Black Friday. Like, I mean, if you slash it enough and you're doing it as a lost leader, trying to get people in a store or trying to get people to try something, I guess you could do that. Yeah. But it's not as effective as if you actually give a reason why they would do that. And there's a great ad in here. I'm not going to go into it, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 6 paragraphs. This part of the ad.
This is straight out of the old Robert Collier.
Yeah, Robert Collier letter book,
which I had a copy of that sitting on the table here a couple times. I don't know where I put it.
I've already got my own copy. So I don't know where it is.
But if you don't have that, definitely that's worth having on your bookshelf.
That's another like really dense read. It's not formatted for today's reader.
No, it's
tight font and lots of stuff in there. But there's some really good stuff in there. But he really goes in and it's interesting because Schwartz points out, he said, here the copy starts with the mechanism and only goes into the bargain claims 6 paragraphs later. Like he spends 6 paragraphs building up to why they're doing this discount, to the actual discount. And most people are afraid to do that, and you have to be careful because you could, you could bore people. But at the same time, they do such a good job because it feels like a story. Yeah. And you're kind of interested. It's kind of like the Trader Joe's.
Right.
Trader Joe's does this really well.
Oh, yeah. They do a fantastic job.
What is it? The Fearless Flyer that comes out every month. If you're not on Trader Joe's mailing list, you really should be, because I think they do a great job of exactly what we're talking about here, of kind of building up the case for why they brought this into their store. Not even for a discount necessarily. Right. But like the trouble they went through to source this, or I mean, there's all kinds of different angles they take, but that's a form of mechanization where they talk about their product in a different way. So,
and I like this. I like the whole justifying and it goes back to, we talked about, from a fundamental standpoint, the book, Cialdini's book Influence, where he talks about if you use the word because, people trust you a whole lot more and are willing to give you the benefit of the doubt whenever you justify what you want or what you're doing with a reason behind it.
Yeah.
Your trust level goes up exponentially.
Yeah.
So
you know what? Look, I'm going to go ahead and read this because it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
This would make, for instance, if you're an e-commerce person, this would make a great email for people. Like
it would be just reading through it. I mean,
for instance, I'm going to read it as I would do it for an email. So they've got like a little headline before the price goes up. Make a great subject line.
Yep.
Dear sir, a short time ago, one of the old reliable mills that makes the finer qualities of woven madras for shirts began sending out SOS calls. So, they're featuring this material that they use for their shirts. They had kept their plant going steadily for months, thinking that the usual demand would easily take care of their excess output. But with the weather so generally unreasonable, the usual demand didn't materialize. And there they were, heavily overstocked and needing money. If we would take all their surplus stock of the finer grades of woven madras, amounting to 250,000 yards, they offered to let us have them at way below any price we had ever paid for shirtings in all our years in business, at far less than they could make the materials and sell them for today. We took them, the whole 250,000 yards, at a tremendous saving in cost, a bargain you may never get again. So, there's a legitimate, weather-related reason. This company had too much inventory. They were about to lose their shirt, to use the pun there.
Yeah.
So this company, the shirt manufacturer, was like, "Hey, we'll take all that." And then, but he's specific. He's like, he didn't just say we took a little extra off their hands. He said we took 250,000 yards, off their hands.
Yeah.
And for that reason, they gave us such a good deal because we took all of it and we basically saved their business. And now we're going to basically pass that on to you.
So we're heroes. Plus, we're also saving you money. We helped save their business, and
save their business,
saving you money. I mean,
we didn't have any, the weather was in play. There was all this stuff that conspired in the universe to bring you this deal, and it's believable. I wrote an email like this for a client one time that. I can't remember what the product was. I will dig up the email and we'll put it on the page. But it was the same kind of thing. It was like there was all these extra pallets of stuff, and the CEO walks around the warehouse and he sees these extra dusty pallets. And I told this whole long story, and whatever it was, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but it sold out in 2 hours.
Yeah,
because it was just people were like, "Oh, that makes sense."
Yeah,
and I think it was one customer bought 80% of it because they were like, "Oh, I'll stock up on that." So
and notice the end of it where he says, "A bargain you may never get again."
Yeah, and why would you? I mean, what's the chance of that
because
again?
It makes sense because how often does this happen? Weather unseasonable, kind of messes things up. Yeah, I see that. So this is a chance to get a bargain. And I may not see it again. So,
yeah, I mean, you could. There's a lot of different things an e-commerce person could do to make this work. So,
fantastic.
I think that wraps up Mechanism.
Yep.
And there's some nuances. Obviously, if you want to get the book, you can get the book and dive even deeper.
Yeah.
But I'm excited about the next chapter we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, concentration, where we get into really specifics, how to destroy alternate ways for your prospect to satisfy his desire.
So I rewrote this just to tease it.
Yeah.
I said, I pulled out there's one little section here that I kind of pulled out to make a teaser. So here's my attempt at teaser copy for the next episode.
Let's hear it.
Little known 3-step formula for crushing your competition.
Oh, I like that one better.
Plus, why you should pull out those old English essays.
Oh, man.
A little curiosity.
Yeah.
Don't
know if I want to pull out my old English essays.
Well, we'll see. So that's the little tease there.
That's a great one.
Little known 3-step formula for crushing your competition. We're going to go over that in the next episode.
Sounds great. I'll be digging through my old
English essays.
English essays that were highlighted with red marks.
Yes.
So, well, thanks again for listening, guys. As always, catch us at persuasionbythepint.com and all of our social media channels. Find us on Stitcher Radio, iTunes, and the like. Thanks again. While you're there, leave us 5 stars. We greatly appreciate it. Also, send us some correspondence. Thanks for again, Crystal at Persuasions. Getting a little tongue tied there, and thanks for the shout out. So,
all right, have a good one.
Yep. See ya.